Yo, 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 what's going on, good people? It's your homie HerbMan, and we coming back at you with another hot banger boogie. Today we're talking about what is heart disease and why it is the #1 killer. So if you guys are ready, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it, all right? So what we're talking about is heart disease. As you can see, I attempted to draw a heart, some arteries, the liver, and the brain. And we'll make all of this make sense in a while for you to understand the significance of heart disease and what is going on inside of your body. All right, now the first thing we understand is when we eat food, it get digested in the digestive system, okay? Then the digestive system breaks that food down into what we call glucose. That glucose gets sent to the liver. The liver then sends that glucose to your cells. Your cells utilize that glucose for energy, and then the excess, they put it in a storage, which is called glycogens, all right? So the cell will store excess glucose, and the liver stores excess glucose. And when they can't handle anymore, then they put it inside of your fat, okay? And that's the start of obesity and diseases and things of that nature, because this operation is getting too much. And another thing that happens as well is your pancreas, once it begins to keep pushing out insulin, because you keep eating, and the more glucose, the more insulin, okay? So the more you eat and the more that breaks down as glucose, the more your pancreas continues to make insulin. And what happens is when the cell starts to reject or resist the insulin and the glucose, because it's too full, the storages are too full, the liver is too full. So now that is what we call diabetes, when your cell resists insulin. Okay. And then over time, because your body is full of this insulin and it has nowhere to put it, and you're not utilizing the energy like you're supposed to because of our sedentary lifestyles, then what happens over time is now the pancreas stops making insulin. And now you're talking about type 1 diabetics. So just like that, I just kind of broke it down to you exactly what happens. But what is another reason? What is the reason for heart disease, so to speak? Okay, so when you break that food down into liver, all right, also the liver produces cholesterol, okay? The liver produces cholesterol, and it also produces another enzyme called CoQ10. I know you guys probably have heard that before, but it's CoQ10, all right? Now, what is the functionality of cholesterol? Why is it needed, and why do we deem it to be the culprit when it's not the culprit? The cholesterol is actually your police department. It's actually your help, okay? And a lot of times we don't understand the understanding of the help. So it produces cholesterol. The cholesterol is broken down into LDL and HDL, okay? And the LDLs, you know, a lot of times when we do our research, they consider one to be good and one to be bad. But both of them are both good for you, okay? And without them, you will see more problems than you realize, okay? So cholesterol, this is what happens. The LDL is the repairer, rebuilder. The HDL, it carries the excess cholesterol through the arterial tubal system, okay? So just imagine that you got your HDL right here, right? And it's basically sweeping through the vein, okay? And it's sweeping up all of the excess cholesterol. Now, if the LDL is a repairer and rebuilder, then this is why you see cholesterol in the arteries. So what happens to the arteries for this all to even happen? Well, if you smoke, you'll do a little something like that to the lining of your arteries or your veins, okay? If you drink, okay? Bad diet, okay? Environmental toxins, okay? It keep lacerating, all these particular things. If we do vaccinations, all right? If you're taking things like statin, okay, if you're doing birth control pills. And so what the LDL does is it comes in and it say, uh-oh, hold up, we got an issue. We got some cracks, and we need to go ahead and cover those cracks up. So this is what cholesterol does. All right. This is your LDL. It comes in and it patches those holes up. Okay. Now, if you keep doing it, then it builds and builds, builds and builds, builds and builds, builds and builds, builds over time, builds. So what happens is here, a lot of times the doctor will tell you to get on a diet that will increase this. Whole grains, whole wheat tend to thicken the blood, right? And then now they're going to get caught up in that, right? And so then they tell you to get on vitamin C or do some calcium supplements, right? So calcium supplements is just like eating cement. So now the calcium deposits get in here and they starting to harden up like cement, okay? Now, before that happens, you have a good chance. Why? Because before the calcium deposits happen and before it get all hardened up, the HDL will come through normally and it would take off the excess. You remember, it's sweeping through. So long as this stays as cholesterol and it hasn't calcified yet, then it's lowered back down. A little bit, way more room for the blood to go through. Okay? But if it's going too much and there's no attention to this, you don't change no diet, you don't know you got these issues going on, right? Now the HDL can't really do a whole lot. Okay? They can't really do a whole lot. So the doctor says get on calcium. These things get very hard here. And one of them rupture. Pow. Okay. When one of them rupture, that signals your red blood cells to come in and begin to try to fix the situation. All right. Now, when these red blood cells come in and try to fix the situation because they just got an emergency that this is shortening up. This is shortening up. Or this cholesterol and calcium deposit has burst and it has a pus coming out of it. And that'll also send a signal to go and try to repair that. And what happens is you get a clot. You see that clot? And that restricts blood flow. That restricts blood flow. And now you are what is called having a heart attack. Okay? That is what happens. That is exactly what happens. So now they tell you, well, you got to get on low cholesterol. You need to start lowering your cholesterol. You need to take all of these foods and all of these medications to lower your cholesterol. Now, here's when we get to the brain. The brain needs about 20% or higher of cholesterol. So when you lower your cholesterol, now you're starting to affect your brain. Because your brain needs the cholesterol that the liver produces. Another thing that cholesterol also too has an effect on are your hormones. Because cholesterol is what progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen, all of that derives from cholesterol. So when you lower your cholesterol, now you have low hormonal function. Okay, when you're talking about estrogen, testosterone, and adrenal. Okay. Also, too, the liver produces CoQ10. So when you tell the liver not to produce cholesterol, you also will affect the production of CoQ10. When you don't have CoQ10, that is going to affect your heart. So most of the times when a person has cholesterol issues here and they get on a low cholesterol thing, or they taking statin, or they taking things to lower their cholesterol, they end up having a heart attack because you're not producing enough CoQ10 for your heart. So you see, the very things that we go to the doctor for when we're dealing with this issue here is it actually propels the situation even further. And you really, because you're trying to lower this cholesterol, lower the production of cholesterol here, you then affect the brain and the heart altogether, and you literally end up inducing the heart attack rather than circumventing the heart attack. Okay, so this is why we need to understand systems and understand how all these things go together and how they affect. So what can we do here? We can get a better diet. We can cut out the smoking. We can cut out the alcohol. We can always watch our stressors. All right. And you know, for environmental toxins,